Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. There's another Raid Shadow Legends video, and if you can't tell behind me, we're talking about Hydra again today. This is going to be my last of my 3 keys from week 2 of season 2. Now, if you've been watching my videos for the last couple days, you know that I've been showing each key that I've done so far on Hydra, and I figured why stop there? Let me show all 3 that I used this week. And this one was awful. It was awful. It was a terrible, terrible result. But we were able to see some cool things within that. And so that's kind of what I want to show today. So I'm going to show you the full run. I don't even know that I have to speed it up in all honesty, because it's not a very long run. We didn't do well. But the point of today's video is twofold. One is to highlight the champions that we do have, namely Geomancer, who's absolutely amazing for Hydra. And I want to talk about how to use this kit, how it can be effective for you, that sort of thing. The other thing I want to show, which I think is really important with this video, is that success in Hydra is hard, and it's not easy even for people with, end game accounts, people with a mind for this game. It's not simple, right? So the frustration level that I know so many of you are feeling is totally valid and totally normal. I actually have a lot of people in my clan that are getting... they get really upset whenever Hydra comes up, and I kind of understand why, right? This is a whole aspect of the game that is really only truly attainable, at least past the normal stage. The first stage is really only usable for really end game teams, only really end game players. And even if you are fairly late game in this, in your account, it's still really hard because you still need 18 champions. So I understand completely the frustration that people are feeling when it comes to this. So by all means, don't feel horrible about it. I do want to do some breakdowns of Hydra to make it a little bit more attainable for people going forward. I'm planning on showing you easy to use 1 key normal team so that everybody can just get it out of the way. And so, that sort of thing to kind of make this a little bit more approachable for people that don't have end game champions or end game accounts. But this one, boy, yeah, I mean, I use good champions. I just stunk it up. It was a bad combination of champions. I didn't think everything through, and I ended up getting surprised by the Head of Wrath, and we died early. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's watch the run here, and you guys can see my ridiculousness. So you can see the team that I'm bringing in behind me. We have Shamail, obviously, to deal with the Head of Torment. We've got Trunda in there for damage. We have Geomancer, who's going to be the star of this show. We also have Lydia for decreased defense weaken, not to mention the speed buff. Sathalia is fantastic for this. Cleanse ability, buff strip ability, and then we also have Ursala the Mourner, who's a solid reviver and buffer. Now you'll see there we have Geomancer. Now here's the thing with Geomancer's kit: when he places weaken in that HP burn, it's a placement. It's not an attack. So when he puts that, he can put that directly on the Head of Mischief, and he doesn't get misdirected at all. That's one of the big advantages to him. The other thing is, whenever him or his allies take damage, whoever has an HP burn from him takes part of that damage. So what we want to kind of focus on with Geomancer is who we place his HP burn on is who we want to take the damage. That's something to keep in mind. So if we are just looking to get as much damage as possible, we want to place it on the heads that are going to take that as much as possible, the ones that have the least amount of defense, right? We're talking about, I think it's Head of Mischief and Head of Torment, really the 2 that we'd be talking about there. Head of Wrath is another really good option. All 3 of those heads are fairly squishy in general, so we can go ahead and put that on. But that's something to kind of keep in mind. Now, this works really well in tandem with the Head of Wrath, because he hits so hard, we then share that damage that he deals to all of our champions with whichever champion has that head. You can see the damage going on right now on that Head of Mischief every time the team gets hit, which is, kind of ridiculous. And so I really like that. Now, let me tell you some of the problems I had with this team. Now, I had a decreased attack with Ursala, but we had a couple issues, right? We don't have block buffs up. We don't have a Mischief Head target champion. So Mischief stealing the buffs and passing them around, that means the enemy's taking less damage. It means they're going faster. It means they're dealing more damage. All those things are bad for us. On top of that, we don't have a lot of healing. My only healer in this is Sathalia. That's not enough for this team. We also don't have any real sustain. Yeah, we have increased defense. Yes, we have strengthen from Ursala, but long cooldown. And then on top of that, we don't have anybody else bringing those debuffs. So you can see we get this, we get that HP burnout, and we already are up to like two and a half, 3 million, and it's like turn 7, right? Trunda does really good damage, obviously, when she hits, so that's a big plus for this team. But it's not like we have a lot of damage dealers in this squad. So the damage numbers we're putting up aren't bad considering the time that we're placed in. The problem with this team was I had no sustain, and so it snuck up on me. Those poisons that go on us, right? There's only a single target cleanse, not an AoE cleanse from Sethalia. So those poisons are ticking, and that can be a major problem. We don't have block buffs up for the enemy, so when they steal them, they're just passing them around. So, that's going to be an issue. There's definitely some other champions we should have brought in to make this work better. Now, I want to point out something really important here with Geomancer. This A2 skill of his, you don't want it on auto, but it strips the buffs, and that can be really, really clutch. So you can see right there, the Head of Wrath had all those different buffs up, right? Increase attack, block debuffs, reflect damage. Those are awful to deal with. Bringing in Geomancer is such a huge boon because you can strip all of those off situationally. And if you don't use that regularly, that means it's always available for when you need it. That's actually a really nice little bonus ability of his. And, this is one of the things, like with someone like Lydia, if you bring a Lydia into your team, single target block buffs ability, targeting the Head of Wrath, definitely my recommended. You block up that increased attack, you block up that reflect damage, you block that block debuffs, all of which can absolutely annihilate your team. So that's a really, really good thing to do. Geomancer's great. One of the things I do want to point out as well about Geomancer is when you're going to focus a single target HP burn, make sure to target the TEDs that are swallowing your champions. Great way to get them out of that is whenever you're taking damage, sows that head and will spew those champions out pretty quickly. So that's always important. It's not so much the HP burn itself that we're getting damage out of. That's not our main focus here. It's actually reflecting the damage that the enemy heads are dealing to us. It's a completely different approach to this than you might think normally. So it's really, really important. And things with HP burn from Geomancer, even if you get a buff spreader like a Vizier or a Harkin Greatblade and you try and spread it, it won't be Geomancer's HP burn in that case. It'll be Vizier's HP burn in that case. So that's not an effective way to do it. You need him to spread it. That's why you have him as lead. That's why you have Shamail there boosting his turn meter and letting him take turn after turn after turn. It's really good. Sethalia, by the way, I just want to point this out. Sethalia is phenomenal. Phenomenal in Hydra. Not only does she place HP burn with her A1, she does an AoE buff strip, and then her cleanse ability and major heal is like on a 2-turn cooldown as her A2 skill. So you get that up pretty often. On top of that, her A3 and her A2 both have turn meter boost. So she's kind of phenomenal for this. The only issue is single target, right? Healer. So you need to pair her with somebody else. I had a lot of success using her with Rio in combination, was actually really, really good. One little thing here with Lydia, you'll notice we put the block buffs on the Head of Wrath. I think that's the most important champion to put that on because he's going to give himself an increased attack buff, he's going to give himself a reflect damage buff, and a block debuffs buff. And so it can be really hard to, get through it otherwise. But you can see we had 3 HP burns going on right there. We obviously just lost one, but we're about to get another one here from Geomancer. It gets around. We're already up to 4.5 million damage. It's only turn 15, no healing, and no ally protection. For me, I think that was the biggest issue here. If I could have replaced, Ursala with somebody that does this ally protection, if I could have replaced probably, Sethalia or Trunda even, with somebody that does a more healing and a cleanse ability, I think we actually would have been in a much better shape, even without having another damage dealer like Trunda there. And as long as Geomancer's still alive, I feel like we would have been in really, really good shape. But, mistakes were made. Definitely you can see Geomancer is not only fantastic for this, but he can really help your team survive and just do damage, I should say, along the way. But the HP burn's really good, especially with that Head of Suffering out there. It works out really nicely. So this is about the end here. If I had built the better team, but 5 million damage or so, pretty good, I would say. 5.5 million. It's not great. It's not great damage, but it's definitely better than what I was expecting. Well, no, it's not. It's better considering that we died so early. I'll say that. But there's a lot of potential for that team. If I had built that right, I feel like that could have been probably a 15, maybe even a 20 million damage team. If I use my top tier champions, that might have been a team that could one key this level. At least Geomancer is a champion in which you can do that, right? You can build around him. I feel like his kit really lends itself to that. So these are things to kind of consider when you're doing this. I think there's more than a few approaches to actually take down the lower levels of Hydra without bringing crazy champions, without breaking all your best teams. I think you can do it with one key, pretty much regardless of affinity. You should be able to do it. So, or regardless of the rotation, right? You can be able to do it. So there's definitely some things to think about here and different approaches that we can take to dealing with that. So we'll be covering that as we go forward, but I just wanted to show that. I want to show my lackluster performance. I wasn't proud of it, but I figured you guys had a right to it. So there it is. Anyway, guys, hopefully that was, at least made you feel better about your runs. And also, if you have Geomancer, I think you can see how good Geomancer is. You're basically giving your entire team a crazy reflect damage, and really doing a lot of work against the other heads out there. So definitely something I recommend using is Geomancer in your teams if you can. Geomancer and Drexstar, man. So that's the magic combo right there. Anyway, guys, that's all we got for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Yeah. Like, subscribe, and until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.